Am I overreacting or is this an actual problem? All right. If you've actually ever asked yourself this question before, this video is just for you because we're actually going to break down the intentionality behind deciphering between the two and then how to actually continue to use this system moving forward in your relationships as a high achiever. Because truth is, you've asked this question more than once about the same person repetitively, whether it was over a span of 6 months, this person ghosted you and came back, this was a moment where maybe there was an apology given, just a disconnect in the relationship. You're trying to figure out if this is the right person. Should you move on? I mean, so much that leads you to overthinking repetitively. And as a result, carrying a lot of anxiousness in you. And I want you to hear this before we move forward. You already know the answer. You're not actually confused about what happened, simply looking for permission to execute on what you already know. And that's what I'm going to give you today, permission to make the decision on what you already know. So right now we have a graph and we have a chart here. And on the x-axis is going to be what we call evidence. All right. So if any point you see me looking down, it's because I'm actually drawing this out on my phone and it's going to show up on the screen. All right. So we have evidence as the x-axis. All right. If I could just zoom in long enough to see this. Oh, you don't need to see that squiggly line. All right. We have evidence. Okay. And then on the x-axis, or the y-axis rather, all right, we have a word called intensity. Okay. And this is actually going to be a representation of emotional intensity. So you probably want to put in parentheses emotional next to it. Okay. But nonetheless, intensity. Okay. Emotional. Because that's ultimately what we're dealing with here when it comes to making these decisions. There's a lot of intensity emotionally that shows up. And so it can either cause us to make one of these next four decisions that we're about to expose. Okay. And so let's just say on the bottom left, okay, we're actually going to call this noise. All right. We're going to say on the bottom left, this is noise. All right. And we're going to actually kind of color these a little bit with some different colors. All right. And noise, right, is actually where we have low evidence and low emotional intensity. Okay. So this is where we get a lot of the bad moods. Okay. Maybe a bad day, but no case to really build on. Okay. This is more of like where you have your bad day. Okay. You're just in a bad mood. Can't really explain why. Okay. There's no real case to actually build this off of. All right. And you can actually move on from this. Okay, because there's no real evidence and you're just kind of having a low emotional experience. Okay, I'm going to move my camera around so you can kind of see where this stuff is, at least on the surface. Okay, so that is something that you can easily move on from and ignore. It's not something you have to give too much time to. But then let's go to the top left where we have a sense of high emotion but low evidence. Okay, and this is actually where we would give panic. Okay, and we're going to change this color here. Let's say the light blue. Oh, you cannot see that. Okay, we'll just go deeper here. Okay, and we'll say this is panic. Okay, so this is high emotion, all right, but low evidence. All right, and so this is where a lot of you actually live. Again, I got to update this because, camera's moving all over the place. So when we're being in a place of panic, all right, this is where a lot of you live, where one delayed text and your whole nervous system convinces you that everything's about to go down the crap. Okay. So when you think of high evidence or high intensity, low evidence, okay, this is actually where you have a lot of emotions that flood your mind. And so there's zero data to prove what you're assuming, right? You're kind of oftentimes looking into the future. You're clinging to the past. Maybe there's some issues that kind of show up in the surface, but it's actually having you very much in an emotional survival state. Okay. So if it's a delayed text message, you're starting to overthink. You're starting to wonder what went wrong. You're starting to rescue something that doesn't even need rescuing right now. Okay. And it's causing you to react in a panic manner. All right. So we can put a few things here. Okay. If it's a delayed text, okay, maybe this is a moment where this person, um, you know, doesn't send you a good morning text. Okay. Maybe it was a canceled date, right? It's rescheduled, or at least that's actually something that could be on the way, right? But like again, these are all moments that we would look at and go, "Oh my goodness, does he like me? Does he care?" Right? But in reality, we're creating panic on things that we don't really have a lot of evidence for. That means that he doesn't like you, he doesn't care for you, he's not interested. Okay? We're just needing to slow down. All right? And then, okay, of course, when you think about this, think about like zero evidence, even if it doesn't fit into this in this category. Okay, I just want to be sure to explain this in the best way possible. Okay, so this is where zero evidence lives. Zero evidence. Got a lot of emotions flooding, but no evidence. I can't go to any point of reference that's going to explain the reason for this panic and that it's legit. All right. So then when we go to the bottom right, okay, when we go to the bottom right, there's low emotion, but high evidence. Okay. This is low emotion, high evidence. It's in the far right quadrant. And this is where we call denial. Okay. Put this in purple. We'll call this denial. Okay. And when it comes to being in denial, all right, this is actually one of the most dangerous quadrants because you're not panicking. You're just actually living in a place of numbness, right? Maybe this is a behavior that you're used to. You're kind of used to it at this point. That doesn't mean that it's healthy. It doesn't mean it's okay. It doesn't reflect a sense of security. It's just another day. Okay. It's familiar. All right. And you're not only numb to it, but he's not just canceled once, he's canceled 3 times. Okay. 3 times of cancellation, back to back to back. Okay. Maybe this is one of those moments where there's ghosting involved, right? So you got ghosted and then you got hit with the hey stranger text, right? Came back after a month and was like, hey, I got a good reason for why this happened. And I'm really going to explain this. I really want to be able to back this up. Okay. So then there's canceled 3 times, disappeared for days, right? He said out loud that he's not looking for anything serious, but you convinced yourself that he hasn't met anybody like you to make him look for anything serious, right? So now you turn it into a job, you turn it into a competition, you turn it into I'm going to prove you wrong type of deal. Okay. Okay, this is the moment where we have nothing but evidence, but you've just been trained to overlook it. Okay, so you're just ignoring all the alarms. And whether you're telling yourself it's not that big of a deal, it's happened to worser people, or, like, oh, he'll change in due time and due season when we get married, all the things, like all the different extremes you might run to. Like, that's you not actually taking note of the evidences that you have. Okay, you're just completely ignoring that. And on top of that, your alarm system is just really weakened. Okay. And so you've trained yourself not to feel that alarm that the evidence should be setting off. Right. Evidence should actually be setting off the issue. Like, oh, there's something off here. But again, because you trained yourself to ignore it, it doesn't. Okay. It's kind of like when you get into the car and you hear your seatbelt alert and alarm going off repetitively to alarm you to put your seatbelt on, but you just keep driving. Right. And eventually that happens often and enough times that you just tune it out, and you might not even necessarily hear it so much. It might be very faint. It might not be very focused, and everybody else in the car can hear it, but you. Yeah, that's kind of one of those moments. Okay. And this is where we're actually confidently living in a place of denial. Okay. And evidence should be setting this off, because feeling it means you'd have to act on it. In this regard, you haven't. Okay. So we're definitely living in a place where it's numb. Okay. We can definitely put that in parentheses. But then let's go to the top right quadrant. Okay. And all right, I know I'm moving everywhere. We're going to make this make sense. All right. But now, this top white quadrant, okay, when we're talking about high evidence and calibrated emotion working together. So the emotional intensity is there and you have evidence to show it. Okay. This is what we're actually aiming for. And this is what we like to call discernment. Okay. So this is where your emotions and evidence work together. Okay. This is where this works together. we have the evidence and the emotions are setting off the alarm that something isn't right here. All right. And this is where we're actually feeling, and feeling becomes information. Okay. So this is the emotions that we're having, or information. We're staying curious about it. Okay. And then this evidence, we have actually a legitimate point of reference that we can go back to that confirms these emotions. I'm spelling reference wrong. Okay. Okay. So this is literally showing, and I'll zoom out for a second, that what we're saying is actually part of the deal. Okay. Like we see it, it's there. We don't have to play games, and everything is working together that is informing of our decision. Okay. So here's how you actually use this. All right. So the next time that you need to figure out, hey, like, is this a healthy decision? Okay. Obviously, we want to say the top, and it might, I might mess this up, but you guys are going to get this. I'm just actually going to put the right side as a double positive. Okay. Now, the bottom left is a double negative. Okay. This might be a negative positive. Okay. That's a positive negative. Okay. There we go. Had that messed up. All right. So anytime that you look at this chart, and I'm actually going to make myself a little bit smaller here so you can see everything that's happening in this chart. All right. It's been a little bit messy. Okay. But when you see this, okay, how you're going to use this moving forward is just simply weighing your decision on this chart. Okay. So the next time your stomach drops, okay, about someone, don't ask, am I overreacting? Okay. Ask, what's my evidence? What's my evidence? Because that is literally the chart that we have here that's going to help us determine if what we're responding with is legit, or if what we're responding with is actually coming from a place of overthinking, anxiousness, and other things that really have less to do with what's in front of us, has so much more to do with what's inside of us. Okay. Not one incident, a pattern across time under normal conditions, not just during a fight or a bad week. Okay. That's kind of more so where you might judge the bad day and bad mood. Okay. It's a lot of noise. You just had a bad day. Maybe it was a bad moment, but it wasn't everything being bad. Sometimes we quickly can overreact because we're judging by noise, not full on discernment. Okay. The evidence is there and you've been sitting in denial. That discomfort that you feel and that you're naming isn't you being dramatic. Okay. You naming it isn't dramatic. It's your discernment that's actually getting the opportunity to speak up. Okay. To come alive with where you are. If the evidence isn't there, yet you're spiraling anyway, okay, then that's more than likely panic that's setting in. And we need to learn how to regulate and relax to not allow ourselves to make decisions from a panicked place when we're talking about relationships in particular. And panic ultimately needs your compassion, not judgment, not shame, and most certainly not needing to react impulsively or immediately thinking that's going to solve it. It needs compassion. Take a breath and regulate a little bit. And what you're seeing here is an actual display and depiction of something that I break down in a further video that I have on my channel that just discusses the fact that your relationships aren't the real problem. We don't necessarily look at this chart specifically, it's exclusive to this video, but that video is going to break it down at an even further layer on how this is actually going to be something that transcends your relationships, but it actually comes not from more charts and not from more tasks and not from more tips and tricks, but from another actual deeper source that if we don't patch that leak, it'll actually continue showing up and keep you from experiencing the relationships you've always wanted. This video gives you the tool on how to navigate the pattern. And this next video you're going to watch is revealing what the pattern really is behind the scenes. And you want to be sure to have this in your back pocket somewhere for the next time your gut goes off and you don't know if you should listen. And next time, we're going to move on from what you see to how you feel about what you see and why your body can't always tell the difference between excitement and anxiety and what to do about it. So if you want to be here for that next video, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you then.